Welcome again to Abundant EM. We're glad you are here. If we can all stand, all of us in the room, as we read the word of the Lord out loud together today. So as we read, I encourage you to declare in faith the word of the Lord over your own life. All right. So it is 4 quick slides, and let's get ready. Here we go. Ready? Begin. And have you completely forgotten this word of encouragement that addresses you as a father addresses his son? It says, "My son, do not make light of the Lord's discipline, and do not lose heart when he rebukes you, because the Lord disciplines the one he loves, and he chastens everyone he accepts as his son." Endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as his children. For what children are not disciplined by their father? If you are not disciplined, and everyone undergoes discipline, then you are not legitimate, not the true sons and daughters at all. But God disciplines us for our good, in order that we may share in his holiness. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. Last one. Go back. Go to the next one. Oh no. I'll read the last one for us together, okay? Therefore, strengthen your feeble arms and weak knees. Make level paths for your feet, so that the lame may not be disabled, but rather healed. Amen. This is the word of the Lord. You may be seated. All right. That was my fault, Ayang. That wasn't you. Okay. We had a copy-paste error. All right. So this month, this is our 3rd week. Next week's our last week on this passage, Hebrews 12, 1-2. And this idea of running with perseverance the race set before us. So what does it look like as a church, as individuals, and as a body to run this race of faith together? I think there are 2 points in the year where there's like a natural restart. So calendar year, January, right? And then the school year starting. I feel like those are 2 natural rhythms where we like restart. You know, you're like, okay, this year in school, I'm going to go to class every day, or like whatever your goals are. I'm going to like do well. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. That's a natural time for us to kind of restart some of those things. And most of us, we have this passion, we have this fire. But as you've seen the last 2 weeks, we've talked about, how do you steward the fire well? When the Lord ignites your heart and puts passion on your heart, and you feel like this is my calling in my life, to live this way, to do this thing, X, Y, Z. Most of us have passion when we start something, whether it's a new business, new school, new relationship, new work, new job, new church even. We have this excitement, this energy. But oftentimes, just like in our faith, there's moments where it gets dry, or it gets burned out, or we get weary. Last week, we talked about the fire triangle, right? The 3 elements you need to keep a fire burning. What were they? Okay, so fuel, there's like tinder, kindle, fire logs, right? But you can't just have a bunch of dry leaves or wood sitting there. That alone does not cause a fire. What else is there? Heat, a source of heat. Okay, what's the other one? Oxygen. In a vacuum, a fire will never start, okay? So you have to have all 3 things. So firefighters, when they're putting out a fire, their goal is to remove one of those 3 things. If you can remove one of those 3 things, the fire will burn out, okay? And so in the same way in our own lives, we're the ones that have to put the tinder, the logs, the kindling, all the things, so that when God lights and ignites things, there's something to ignite, right? But as he ignites us, we have to keep that fire burning. You got to keep the oxygen flowing around that fire. And one of the ways we talked about oxygen was the Holy Spirit of God. The Spirit of God moves and breathes through our lives so that the fire that God ignites can keep going, can keep burning. It's not just one flame and then done. It's long term. How am I going to keep this fire for God burning in my life? How do I want to keep my heart focused on him for the rest of my life? And so we talked about last week's sin. Oftentimes, it's the sin of unbelief or the sin of not being willing to trust in God fully, that can often quench the oxygen from our spiritual lives. And so as we go into this more this week, as we go in the next slide, we'll look at Hebrews 12, 1-2. This is our main kind of theme for this, this series. If we go to Hebrews 12, 1-2, it says here, therefore, since we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. That was last week, right? You can't run the race if you're carrying like 50-pound weights all the time. That's for training, right? That's not for race time, though. So now what's the next part here? And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. That's what we're looking into today. Let us run with perseverance the race that is marked before us. I initially underlined run with perseverance the race. But as I was focusing on this passage this week, I realized there are a few more words after that. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. So my grandma, she's also watching at some point. She doesn't understand, but this is her way of getting to see me, apparently. So she watches YouTube. She's 92, okay? Grandma on the computer doing YouTube, okay? Here she is. She loves to tell the story of my dad. My dad has an older sister and an older brother, younger brother. He's in the middle. My poor middle child, friends. You're beautiful. My dad's the best, okay? So my dad, he's in middle school. My grandma always tells this story because it illustrates his personality so perfectly. So they're in middle school, my dad and my uncle, and they're all super proud of my dad because he's like running. He's like this little track star back in Korea in the like 50s, 60s, whatever it is. And so they're at this like middle school track, I guess, meet or whatever. And he done well, and here he is. And this time they're supposed to run this like it's like a small town. Okay, so it's not a track paved course. It's like you're running through the forest. Okay, and so they had this race marked out for them. And so there's all these kids, and they're watching, they're yelling his name, they're excited, and then he goes, okay, or whatever that starts, and all these kids start running, and they're trying to figure out where he is. So he's running, and then eventually, you know how when you like all start out, but you guys kind of spread out eventually? So they all started spreading out, and they couldn't find him. They like couldn't see him in this like course. And it turns out my dad was so focused on running, he was like looking down or something, that he got off track. And so he's running super hard the wrong direction. Like the totally opposite direction. And my grandma always tells a story because they're like, this is literally your dad. One track mind, so focused, so great. But if he's on the wrong track, it's really bad. That's my dad. Thanks, Dad. Okay. So here we go. That story reminded me that you can train all you want. You could be the best athlete. You could have the greatest stamina and endurance. But if you are on the wrong race, or you are running the wrong direction, you will not end up winning anything. Does that make sense? And so in our lives, it's really important for us to check often. Am I running the race that God has marked out for me? Or am I running the race that I have chosen for myself? Okay? Now, sometimes that race you've chosen for yourself aligns with what God has marked out for you. But ultimately, the way you live your life, what you do, what choices you make, all of that has to line up with the race that God has marked out for you. Now, if we are not running the race, because most of us will get off track. All of us will at some point in our lives. We'll grow discouraged. We'll grow tired. We'll get distracted. Whatever it is, all of us will get off track at some point. And so when we get off track, it is actually God in his kindness when he brings you back on track. Does that make sense? And so sometimes God uses discipline to bring us back on track. Let's go to Hebrews 12, verse 5. This is our passage for today. So just a few verses after this, He's saying, the author of Hebrews is saying, hey, have you forgotten what he has told you? When you gave your life to him, you are a son and daughter. You are not an orphan anymore. And so he's saying, my son, do not make light of the Lord's discipline, and do not lose heart when he rebukes you. Not if, when, okay? If you've never experienced the rebuking of God, my friend, give your life to Jesus, because then you will, okay? When he rebukes you, because the Lord disciplines the one he loves. Do not raise your hands, but majority of us, okay? I think if you're from like an ethnic home, so like Asian, Latino, like African, whatever, our parents discipline, okay? Who here was disciplined? Okay, that's right. Your parents loved you. That's why they disciplined you, okay? Now, they might not have done it right. It might not have been really good discipline, but most parents discipline. Do you guys know that nowadays parents do not discipline their kids? Go into any kindergarten classroom this year, and you can tell. You can tell which parents discipline their kids, which parents don't, okay? So when I was disciplined, okay, my brother and I, we used to do the really Korean thing where you go up against the wall, and you have to hold hands, like you have to hold your hands up. Okay. Do you guys, I have shoulder cracking. I'm pretty sure it traces back to that, okay? But like we would get in trouble, we would do all the Korean whole 9 yards, and we would get in trouble with disciplined. And I remember saying to my mom, like, you don't love us, that's why you discipline us, like crying and all these things. Then my dad has like home video of it. I'm like, oh my gosh. Anyway. And so here I am crying. My mom hates me. My parents hate me. They're the worst. I wish I had Brittany's parents. Because I'm a millennial, so all of our friends are named Brittany. Okay, Brittany's parents. Brittany's parents are so cool. They don't discipline her. You know what they say? Then you can go and be Brittany's sister, okay? That's like the super Korean thing to say. But the point being, when I was young, I hated their discipline. And I would even say things like, I hate you. But now that I'm older, now I'm like, oh my gosh, thank God you disciplined me. Because if you had not disciplined me, I would be in jail. Like I would have done something. Like I would not be in a good place, okay? Now, granted, human parents, right, they also make mistakes in discipline. They do not discipline well. A lot of parents don't discipline well. So I'm not making light of that either, because that is also a different problem. But the point being, good parents are also striving to discipline well. Do you know what the root word of discipline means? It does not mean meme. Okay, what does the root word of discipline mean? Does anyone know? No one knows? Take a wild guess. What do I hear? What was that? Who said what? Y'all are whispering out there like, okay, it does trace back to disciples, correct. But what is the root word of that? You guys are like, my brain is tired, okay? To train, to teach, to guide. So the real heart of discipline is to train and to guide and to teach you. Hey, that was the wrong way. Don't go that way. Because if you keep going that way, one day you'll be a convicted felon. So please don't do that, okay? 5-year-old child, please don't do that. This is the right way to go. Teaching and guiding in the right direction. Only parents who are good, like only your parent can discipline you. Does that make sense? I do not discipline someone else's kid. I don't, because they're not my kid. Sometimes I want to, but I don't, because it is not my job to make sure the future of that child is in the right direction, right? But my kids, you better believe we discipline. Because I'm like, it is my responsibility, at this young age especially, that I will guide them in the right direction. If I don't, if I let them just do whatever they want and treat them however they want, we will pay for this in a couple years. And so because I love my children, I discipline them. Verse 7, it says this: endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as his children. If the Lord is disciplining you, if he's guiding you, if he's like, hey, this thing you've been doing, it is not the right way. When you feel that, when someone says to you, imagine being at work or at school, okay? Your teacher, your boss says, hey, look, this thing you did, this assignment, whatever, not so great. Here's the feedback. How many of you love getting that feedback? You're like, give it to me. I love feedback, okay? Hardly anyone wants to be told that your work or what you're doing is not that great. But someone who truly cares for you, a good teacher, a good parent, a good mentor that has built good safety and relationship with you, they will begin to tell you, hey, this is good, but this is not so hot. You got to go a different way because they love you and they care for you. When I see someone else's kids doing crazy things, I don't step in. Too much work. Not my job. Not my responsibility. But my kids or my church kids, you better believe I do because that's my responsibility. If someone does not guide you, it's because there hasn't been strong enough relationship built, but their job is to love you by guiding you. Think about the people in your life. Who is that person in your life that has disciplined you, taught you, trained you, guided you in the right way to go? Think about it. For some, it might not actually be a parent. Others, it might be. Think about past teachers, past pastors, past youth leaders, past mentor figures, church, like older sisters, brothers. Like, who are the people that you can say, hey, that person, at that time when they told me that thing, it wasn't great. But now I can see that it was for my good. Okay? Think about those people. If you are not disciplined, then you are not legitimate. You are not a true son and daughter of God if he does not discipline you. Because he disciplines you, it's because he loves you as his child. It's one of my favorite stories to tell. It's one of my core memories growing up. I was in middle school. I think I was 12. And 12-year-old Stacy, same thing as 35-year-old Stacy, does not like getting up in the morning. I am not a morning person. Y'all know, all the texts I send out to the group chat, like 10:30. That's the earliest because I'm always doing things at night, okay? But here I am, 12. We don't have cell phones. We literally did not have cell phones then, okay? So I had an old-fashioned alarm clock. And my dad would put it on the most annoying setting, the like beep, beep, blaring one. And every morning, without fail, every morning I would not get up to go to school because I hated waking up. He'd have to like drag me out of bed and get me going. So finally, my dad is sick and tired of this, right? Every morning, dragging out 12-year-old Stacy. So he gives an ultimatum, because my dad is really good with those. He's like, ultimatum, okay? If you do not wake up and catch the bus to go to school, you will walk to school. I live in Arizona, okay? So 6 o'clock, still hot in the morning, okay? It's like a 15, 20-minute walk to school. He's like, you're going to walk. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. What happens? Homegirl, don't wake up. I don't want to wake up. I missed the bus. I'm like, no, there's no way my dad's going to make me walk on my own to school. What did my dad do? He made me walk on my own to school. So that whole morning, I am like so mad at him. Every step of that 20-minute walk, I'm like, my dad is the worst dad. How can he, what if I get kidnapped? Like, he is the worst dad in the world. How can he let me do that? I just slept in, whatever. I'm just going crazy. I'm like trudging along, literally, okay? It's hot, I'm sweating. You know the backpack strap sweat? So gross, okay? So here I am, trudging along, angry at my dad, literally like cussing him out the whole time, okay? And here I am, as a 12-year-old. I get to the entrance of the middle school, and I hear a whistle. I was like, what? I turn around. My dad is on his bike, maybe 20, 30 feet behind me. And he goes, have a good day at school. He goes back around, goes home. That entire time, I was so mad at my dad for actually doing what he said he would do and actually disciplining me and actually following through. That whole time, I was mad at him, accusing him of being the worst father in the world. There he was, 20, 30 feet behind me the entire time. watching me get to school safely. That is a core memory for me because that moment, actually, I have pulled back on that memory when I think about God often. My dad is not perfect. He's not perfect, okay? But that gives me the greatest picture of God as a father. When he disciplines us, it's because he loves you. And even in the discipline, you might be mad at God. You can't see him. You're angry. You're doing all these things. But where is God? God is on his bike, riding a helmet in the 90s, okay, 20, 30 feet behind you. That is what God is doing. He is right behind you the entire time. That is who God is. If you look at the next passage, it says this, because God disciplines us for our good. For our good. Everything he does is for you and my good. I will die on this hill, y'all. Everything God does is for your good. Now, does everything that happen, is it good? No, because we live in a broken world. And so there are things that happen that are not good. And yet when we give him our lives and trust that somewhere along the way that God can even redeem the most broken, awful things that have happened to us. That whether I see it in this life or not, somewhere in the story, God will change it all for good. Might not happen while I'm alive, but even in eternity, God will make it all for good. Everything he does is for your good. I love this verse because it says, like, no one likes discipline. It's not pleasant. Like, duh. No one likes it. It's painful. It's true. No one likes being disciplined. So let me ask you, what's going on in your life right now that you don't like? That bothers you? I have something right now in my life that bothers me. It really, really bothers me. Like, I'm thinking about it quite often. And as I was typing this message out, I was like, oh, Jesus. That's the worst, when you're going to preach and then God is like convicting you before you speak about it. That's the worst. And he's like, that thing that sucks right now, that's like always on your mind, I wonder if it might be a form of discipline. And I'm like, oh, dang it. Okay? I don't know. Because not everything is discipline, right? Sometimes it's just like another reason. Sometimes it's sin. It's you and I, and we got to get out of the way. Sometimes, like Job, we have no reason why, no understanding, hi baby, of what happens in this world. We don't know why. Job never knew why he lost his family, his wealth, his health all in one day. He never got to know why. Sometimes in this life, you don't get to know why. But sometimes he allows something and it's painful and it's hard. And that's when I ask you to lean in and say, wait, God, hold on. I don't like this. You know what else I don't like? Discipline. So could this maybe be a form of God's discipline? Only God can answer that. So you got to go to him and talk about it. Okay? Go to God and talk to him about it. The anxiety you're carrying, the worry you're carrying, the issue you're carrying, take it to God and say, God, is something in here your way of teaching me, your way of training me, your way of helping me to build my endurance spiritually? Because if I don't learn this lesson here, God is gracious and will keep teaching you that lesson over and over again. This is not like public school where you take a test and you fail, but they keep you moving forward, okay? In God's world, if you don't pass that test, he is gracious and kind and will teach it to you again. Okay? So if you don't like it, be like, Jesus, I don't like this, but I want to learn this so I can move on and level up because this ain't no fun. Okay? Does that make sense? Like, when something is hard in your life, lean in to ask, is this God's discipline? And if so, lean in and talk to him about it. How will you know that it's God's discipline? Because look right here. At the time, it's unpleasant, okay? But later on, Discipline produces righteousness and peace. When I was young, my parents disciplined me. I know that I am a decently adjusted adult in life now because of my parents' discipline. I can benefit the fruit of that now. Does that make sense? So you might not see the benefit of discipline now, but you will see it down the road. I look at my kids now. We're at a really fun stage. Josiah's 7. Eliana's 2. So she's in the cray-cray 2-year-old tantrum stage, but homegirl knows what she's doing sometimes too. And she'll do it on purpose, But he's 7. So we've gotten past that crazy early stage. And now he understands, oh, yeah, I shouldn't stab people with scissors or whatever it was he was doing, okay? I shouldn't do this and do that. He gets it now because we disciplined him for doing those things. And so now he knows, yeah, even now he'll get disciplined and he'll know, he's crying. He's like, I'm sorry, you did it for my good, right? We've really instilled that in him. We're like, yeah, we're doing it for your good. It hurts right now. It's not fun right now. But when you're 17, when you're 27, my prayer is that you will be a kind person that loves Jesus, who takes care of others well, because I've disciplined you. Eliana, don't get it. She's just mad at everyone because we discipline her. She's just real angry. But one day, I trust that she will understand that too. The Lord disciplines you because he loves you, and you might not get it now, but down the road, you will reap that benefit. You will reap the fruit of that in your life spiritually. Okay? Now, that's how you know that it's God. Because you can look back and be like, oh, I'm different now because I said yes to God then. The last verse, it says, therefore, strengthen your feeble arms and weak knees. Make level paths for your feet so that the lame may not be disabled, but rather healed. So knowing this, when we get discouraged, because when we get disciplined, it takes the wind out of our sails. We don't want to run anymore. We get discouraged. We get mad at God. We get frustrated, right? Who wants to run the race then? Hardly anyone. So when you get disciplined, that's going to happen. But what God is saying here is hey, remember? Discipline's for your good, but I get it. You get discouraged. And so I'm going to remind you, strengthen your hands and your knees. Let's go. Get back up. Come on. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Because right here where it says make level paths for your feet, if you look in your Bible, you will see there's a footnote that leads you to Proverbs 4:26. And that verse says, give careful thought to the paths for your feet. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet and be steadfast in all your ways. In other words, you cannot be steadfast if you're in the wrong path, right? Then you're steadfastly going the wrong way, okay? So make sure you're in the right lane. Make sure you're going in the right direction. And then be steadfast. So it goes back to the beginning. Let us run with perseverance the race set before us. Some takeaways from today. What race are you on? Make sure you're on the right race. Is it the one that he's marked out for you or the one you've marked out for yourself, right? The faster you course correct, the easier it is. If you've gone 100 miles the wrong direction, guess what? You got to go 100 miles back and then go back from there. 10 miles might seem like a lot, but it's better than 100, okay? So, are you on the right path? Is he disciplining you to get on the right path? You might not like it, but it's for your and my good. Not only that, but discipline is what produces endurance. So if you are on the right path, then I ask you and I encourage you to endure that discipline because he's shaping your character to align with him. If you can pull up the questions that are on here as well, they should be on the next slide. Are we there? On the next slide? Here we go. Okay. So in the last little bit, I want you to think through some of these questions. Okay? What path are you on right now? Where do you think this path will take you? Is it the path that He's marked out for you or the one marked out by yourself? Okay? How have you experienced discipline? And do you truly believe that God disciplines you for your good because He loves you? And last but not least, how do you think God is calling you to endurance in your life right now? How will you live that out this week? Okay. So in their last couple minutes together, I want you guys to turn to your neighbor, find someone. Now you can do either option. You can do this on your own, on your notes on your phone and journal this, or talk to each other. If you're not gonna do the notes well, then I encourage you to talk to each other because sometimes it helps you process. Okay. So last few minutes, turn, share your thoughts. Okay. I encourage you guys to chew on this, and then we'll go from there. Okay. Everyone stretch, turn to your neighbor, and start sharing. Okay?
can wrap up our thoughts. So most of you guys who are here, you guys know that I always encourage you guys to either share or write or journal, because they say only 20% of what you hear stays with you, but 80% of what you write or talk stays with you. So I encourage you, I saw some of you guys taking pictures of the questions. That's awesome. For you guys to reflect on throughout the week. I know some of you guys need some time to process, and so I encourage you guys to take the questions and run with it this week. Ask yourself, ask your roommates, ask your family, talk to them about these questions, and see how the Lord's moving in your life. Can we all stand all together?